On this episode of Locked On Lightning, we're checking in on Bolts and Rangers. We're talking about more potential trade targets for this upcoming deadline, as well as can the timetable for a potential trade be moved up? All of that coming up and more on Locked On Lightning.
You're Locked On Lightning, your daily podcast on the Tampa Bay Lightning. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome to another episode of Locked On Lightning, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Adam Denker. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Locked On Lightning. On today's episode, we're talking about Bolts and Rangers. The Lightning are back on the ice tonight under the bright lights of Broadway. We talk about some unfortunate news that happened during tonight's game. If you're listening to this tomorrow, you already know where I'm going with it. As well as the upcoming trade deadline. We already talked about Sean Walker. Could there be other targets on the horizon, as well as, the timetable that stems from that unfortunate news that occurred tonight during tonight's game. Before we get into all that, I just want to remind you that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. So we're checking in on Bolts and Lightning right now as I record this episode. There is 5.5 minutes left in the second period. The Bolts are down 1-0 off of a Jimmy VC goal early on in the second period. And I will say, given the score, besides the fact that the Lightning are down in this game, besides the fact that Mikhail Sergachev went down with it looked like a potential season-ending injury after he just missed 17 games. Lightning are playing pretty damn good right now. And I will say that because not only are they playing, I think, an all-around very good game, they're playing hard, they're playing tough. This looks like a playoff game in terms of just the amount of big hits that are being laid on both sides. But as we know in years past, whether it be regular season or postseason, MSG is a tough place to play for any team, especially when the Rangers are good. So the fact that the Lightning not only are going into this building after a week off and playing as well as they are against a team that, yes, is very good, a team that I think, though, has kind of been faltering as of late, and this would have been a perfect opportunity. Not a perfect opportunity, but probably a perfect scenario for the Lightning after having that week off to get things rolling again in the second half of the NHL season. And excuse me, you have to bear with me. I'm getting a little bit of a cold or a cough or whatever it is, but I'm here. But the thing is that has really impressed me tonight, and I kind of said it in the last couple episodes, and now I'm eating my words right now as we speak, is Andrei Vasilevskiy. I have said in past episodes that I think, especially in his case, you could tell the years of having a goaltender who is going to just absolutely carry your team for 45 to 50 games a year, I think that's gone, just because this is a league where, and it's not so much I think the goaltending has gone down. I think it's the opposite. I think the offense has gotten so much better in this league to where a lot of teams nowadays, and this is not only the forward line, but this is really the defensive pairings too. There's a lot of teams in the league today, especially the higher class ones, even the Lightning, they in years past have had this, and this year not so much, but the potential's there. But the other teams, they could roll out 5 guys at once. Any one of them could hurt you at any point in time. And I will say, with the amount of players that are very good on this Rangers team, I will say that Andrei Vasilevskiy has played phenomenal tonight. And this is as vintage Vasilevskiy as, in my opinion, that we have seen this year. He did have a shutout earlier this year. But, tonight He stopped 11 of 12, and he's making a lot of good saves down low, especially. And the one goal that he did give up tonight was absolutely brutal. It was short side. He just basically was. I think he was just anticipating that there was going to be a cross ice pass for a one timer, and which you can't cheat. They actually had Henrik Lundqvist on while that goal happened, and he actually kind of insinuated that himself. But I mean, listen, he's a Hall of Fame goaltender. He knows what he's talking about, and 100%, you can't cheat on that. You can't give up. You can't sacrifice positioning for a what if scenario. Guy has a puck on your left hand side. You got to focus on that. You can't focus on what could be trailing on the opposite side of the ice. But other than that, he's been phenomenal. The Rangers have really been trying to crowd the net early on. They've been really, you could see in their offensive attack, they've really been doing. They've been really making an emphasis on doing that early on, and really, that's the times where Vazzy sometimes gets in trouble. He kind of gives up too much space. He overcommits, but he's played very well tonight, and I think as long as this team continues to play well in front of him, I think that the Lightning can stay in this game. They can obviously win. I mean, like I said, it's we're closing in on 3.5 left in the second period. Lightning are only down by a goal. And with this team, the way they go up and down, especially when they're up, they have the capability to really, lay two on in a matter of seconds. What I really like about this Lightning team, what they've done thus far to open up the night, is they've just been very aggressive. They haven't been hesitant ones on either side of the ice, and that's the way you got to play. You got to play an uphill game. A downhill game. You got to go 100% on every move and everything, and you can't stay stagnant, especially against a team like the New York Rangers, who are going to go out there and try and outmuscle you. Like I said, Trouba and Lindgren are the two guys on that team are going to take it to you on every shift, and are going to try and not only hit your top guys, but hit them into the first row. And the Lightning are laying the body just as well as this Ranger team. So, hopefully as the second period winds down, we'll see, maybe a goal and hopefully eventually a Lightning win. But this is a good sign. As I've always talked about on this show, one of the things that I just absolutely drives me up the wall with this Lightning team, whether it be, especially when they're playing well or they're playing bad, but especially when they're playing well, is when they have these long layoffs or they have a couple of days off, even if it's just one or two, they just come in, and as I say that, as I thought this team was playing well, the Rangers scored another goal, making it 2-0. I don't know who got the goal in that for the Rangers yet, but the thing that really, annoys me with the Lightning is that they kind of just go into this mode sometimes, especially when they have a couple of days off. It's like, they don't carry any momentum over, and that doesn't happen. That shouldn't happen really. So it looked like it was a puck that was thrown out to the circle, kind of on a one-timer, and again, Vasilevsky gets beat short side where I just don't understand what's going on with him. And you could tell they showed the replay of him shaking his head. He knows he should have had that. I wonder if the Rangers read something that I didn't read. But that's twice tonight he's been beaten on the glove side, and that's a little concerning. Given that, he historically is not good on his paddle side or his blocker side, and now that he's getting beat 2 straight goals, in which he's getting beat on the glove side, that's a little concerning. Especially on a night where, the Rangers are actually, as much as I said on yesterday's episode, I thought Shesterkin was going to play tonight. It turns out Quick is playing tonight. And believe it or not, Bolts fans, Quick is actually the better of the two goaltenders. Maybe that was a little bit wishful thinking on me to see Shesterkin tonight. So that was Johnny Brodzinski. I know he's been playing very well for the Rangers this year, but still, come on, it's not like he has a crazy power one-timer like Stamkos there, but Yeah, now you got to go into overdrive with this aggressiveness that we've seen all night, and hopefully, the Lightning don't lose that energy going into the third period tonight. So let me know how you felt about this game, and hopefully the Mikhail Sergachev thing isn't as drastic as it looked. I mean, he went down on a reverse hit on Lafreniere, and he went down and he was holding his knee. It looked like his leg just got caught on his way down and he twisted a little bit. Um, like something like that, though, you can't help but wonder if it's not if it's like a tear of a ligament or something. Hopefully, it's just a little bit. Maybe he just strained his ligaments or something. Hopefully, it's not long term, and we get him back for hopefully by the end of the year, if not for the playoffs. So let me know in the comments below how you're feeling about this game, or how you felt about this game up until this point, and what the Lightning could have done better if they lost, or what they did well if they ended up winning this game. So let me know in the comments below this video. And coming up, we'll be talking about more potential trade targets. Like I said, the whole Sergachev thing kind of throws things, maybe, possibly, depending on the timeline of where or when he comes back. Does that throw the Lightning's trade plans into a complete overdrive, and maybe we'll see some move that maybe we didn't expect to. And then after that, we'll be talking about possibly that being a move that comes sooner rather than later. Before we get into all that, I want to talk about our friends over at FanDuel. Now, listen, people, it is Super Bowl week for all of you that celebrate. Everybody celebrates because that is the biggest sports holiday, I think, in America. And you could celebrate Super Bowl week with our friends at FanDuel, America's number one sports book. If you're like me, Super Bowl Sunday is about scoring the best seat on the couch, grabbing your favorite football snacks, and placing some super bets. FanDuel has a bunch of prop bets that they're going to roll out come Super Bowl Sunday. And guess what? I wouldn't be shocked if there's an over-under on how many times we see Taylor Swift. If she shows up, now that might be in jeopardy, which thankfully, hopefully that's the case. But hopefully, the one thing you don't have to hope for is that there will be a ton of prop bets. So go ahead over to FanDuel, which has not only a ton of prop bets for Super Bowl 58, but they have over-unders on points. They have, the spread, everything that you could think of that you could bet on for the Super Bowl, they will have. And new customers who join today will get $200 in bonus bets on their first bet of $5 or more. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook of the NFL. So as always, I want to thank everybody for making us your first listen of the day. If you haven't already done so, please go ahead and subscribe to the podcast. Give us a follow wherever podcasts are distributed in audio form. We're also available on YouTube. Go ahead and subscribe to our channel there. Drop a comment below this video about your thoughts, feelings about the upcoming trade deadline. The Lightning, I'm sure, have a plan about, or an idea as to what they want to do coming up with the deadline. But the issue is now, with the possibility with that ugly injury that we saw tonight with Mikhail Sergachev, does that change the possibility of which targets they go after, and especially the timeline. That timeline we'll talk about later on. But a listener brought up a good point to me the other day, and I spoke about it on a previous episode. Sean Walker might be on the radar, defenseman from the Philadelphia Flyers. I like everything that I've read about that guy. I don't know a whole ton about him. The only thing that scares me away with him is his cap hit. Now, he is a UFA after this season, and with the possibility of certain players here and there on the Lightning may not returning after this season, that may, especially if a guy like that plays well, that could be something that could be in the cards for the Lightning. Now, that could be even more in the cards now that if Mikhail Sergachev is out for the rest of the year, I'm not announcing now that he is, but if you looked at that injury in which he sustained, it did not look pretty in the fact that the guy was inconsolable as they were taking him off the ice. Because, listen, if you played sports like me, when you get injured badly, you know when it's bad, especially if you got injured enough. And I'm sure it's frustrating for a guy like that who just came back. Tonight was his first game after missing 17 games. But I was thinking when I was preparing this segment, um, I was kind of looking at a list, and if you want to follow along with me on HockeyWriters.com, NHL trade candidates as of February 1st, because that's just the list I chose to go off of. Sean Walker is ranked number fourth in that list, and I was looking at other names just because you look at this Lightning team, and this, like I said, this was before what happened with Sergachev tonight. Now, this could be, like I said, a thing that happens, that he could come back in a month or so, or this could be a thing that we don't see him until next season. But if we're how we're gonna do it is if we're working off the idea that he's out for the rest of the year, including the playoffs, the defensive. See, because that does benefit the Lightning. They get that money off the books, and they could go after a rental. Now, as to what they're going to eventually give up for that is a whole nother story, because really, when you look at the Lightning and their assets, when you look at their draft stock and you look at their minor league system, they don't really have much to play with. They don't have a first-round pick until 2026, and really, how much can you really confidently say without smiling that they could get a top tier guy? They could, in theory, if you want to go for a guy like Sean Walker, especially if Sergachev is out of it, you could go for you could trade a fifth from this year, the Blackhawks seventh, and if you're really desperate, get trade your second round for next year. I don't know. I mean, that's just going off the Tanner Jeannot trade from last year. I'm not trying to throw shade at Julien Brisebois. I mean, I'm over it at this point. But, I mean, you got to figure that now if we're working under the assumption that Sergachev is out for the rest of the year, the Lightning desperately need a defenseman to step in, and a top-tier defenseman. They can't just go fishing or go shopping for a lower-tier guy. You can't go out there and settle for a Nick Seeler from Philadelphia, even though that contract looks very appealing to the eye. But you got to look at it this way, or even an Adam Boqvist from Columbus, who is the Lightning, if they were to go after him, he would be a restricted free agent come 2026. But really, at the end of the day, I think that, the more and more I read, and shout out to, I believe the Twitter name is Cyborg Charles Bronson, one of our avid listeners here. He pitched that to me. He brought that to my attention. I think that at the end of the day, it's unfortunate that Sergachev, even if he's out till the playoffs, I mean, what the Lightning can do if he could come back sooner, if the Lightning want to cheat, and I'm saying cheat within the realm of that every team, every year, and the Lightning got killed for this years ago when Kucherov was on LTIR. They tell Sergachev, if you can make it back to the playoffs, that's great. What we're going to do is they go after Walker. They give up, if I'm the GM right now, I say the Blackhawks seventh and next year's second for Walker. And then maybe they could work on re-signing him and maybe talking to him about, how much he really would want to come back here. Because, it'd kind of suck if they give up their second for 25 and then this year's Blackhawks pick in the seventh, and they don't get anything back in return for it. But that would set them up, in theory, for a pretty nice playoff run, given the fact that, if Sergachev were to be back by then, plus you got Walker. So, really, you got a second-line guy in Sean Walker who could potentially play on the second line or the third line, depending on, what you choose to do with your lines. If you decide with Perbix that You can't have him on that first line anymore. Or, yeah, so I'm hoping that's the way they go about it if there was a catastrophic injury that Sergachev suffered tonight. So let me know in the comments below. I mean, really now it all hangs to see on whether or not he gets injured. And in that same breath, coming up in just a little bit, we're going to wrap things up with talking about, how soon will the Bolts pull the trigger now, if that is the case. I mean, a lot of things that could be learned, and the new trade, I guess, strategy for the Tampa Bay Lightning will be reassessed in the next 24 hours. So let me know in the comments below how you feeling about that. I mean, it's either way. I mean, it's my scenario was probably a best case scenario. You obviously don't want to have Sergachev go down for the rest of the year and then throw him into the fire of a playoff run. But hopefully it's nothing but, nothing more than, a couple of weeks or maybe even a month from now that he is back. So coming up in just a little bit, like I said, we'll be talking about, does this move up the deadline regardless for the Tampa Bay Lightning of making a move in just a little bit. First, I want to wrap things up with our last sponsors of the day, and that is our friends over at Indeed. Now, we're driven by the search for better. That's just the way humans are. But when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. Now, if you need to hire, you need Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. In past episodes, I've said, I have a friend who just started their own business and they didn't expect it to grow as fast as they did. And I said, guess what? You have all these needs that you have and you're only one person. So you know what you need? You need Indeed to hire the best out there to help you continuing growing your business. So one of the things I love about that is that they have, the matching part. You take all the work out of it. You just don't have to search for candidates. All you got to do is match, and they'll match it with what you need for your job posting. So listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/locked-on. Just go ahead, Indeed.com/locked-on right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on Locked On Lightning. Indeed.com/locked-on. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. So like I said earlier, I haven't seen anything lately. I mean, recently, in the past couple of minutes, we're in the stages, the early stages of the third period now. And, like they keep showing that hit on Sergachev, and it looks worse and worse every single time. And it was just a weird hit because, he went in for a hit on Lafreniere. Lafreniere gave it back to him, and it was just a weird way his leg got caught up, excuse me. And we'll just I'm pretty sure we'll hear something tomorrow, hopefully, or in the next couple of days. But does this move up the trade deadline strategy for the Lightning? I mean, how soon can we see a move? And I would be very surprised if Sergachev is back in the lineup next week. I think that an injury like that, then again, what do I know? We have no idea. We're just going off of something that just happened not too long ago. And I'm sure he's getting assessed right now, but we're probably not going to hear anything until tomorrow, maybe late tomorrow, if not Friday. But I think that this certainly does. I think that whether you're missing Sergachev until the end of March or even April or even May, I mean, at that point, if he's going to be gone until mid-April, I say you just keep him on long-term injured reserve until the playoffs. And you kind of, like I said, cheat the system, which any haters out there, they're going to say that's ridiculous, blah, blah, blah. Every team that has ever played in the playoffs that has had a need that needed to be filled because of injury has done that, where eventually that player comes back and it doesn't count against your cap. So I don't want to hear it. I'm tired of people bringing that up, especially because the Lightning have done that in the past. I mean, the Blackhawks won 3 cups off of that, so I don't want to hear it. Um, so I think that this certainly does. I think that regardless of Sergachev being gone, I think that the Lightning were going to make a move before the deadline. I would have been shocked if we were sitting here on March 8th and we still didn't see any move made by this franchise. I mean, if that was the case, I would be fuming, and I think the whole fan base should be, if that's the case, especially if now that Sergachev could be out for the the long term future. I mean, I don't know when we're going to see him again, like I said, but you definitely, if that's the case, if you know that you're one of your top defensemen is going to be out for the long term, why wait? Go in, call Philly up, or call another team, because I'm sure Sean Walker isn't the only defenseman that is out there that teams are looking at, or the Lightning are looking at. Like I said, Adam Boyquist, he's a good fill-in, and plus he's under team control until 2026, where he still will be an RFA. You got Tony DeAngelo from Carolina as well. Tyson Berry, I mean, I don't know if you want to get that contract, $4.5 million. We'll see. I mean, he becomes a UFA after this year, so there's that as well. But there is a number of defensemen that I would love to grab out there. Jacob Chikrin from Ottawa. I don't think Ottawa's going to trade him to an in-division rival, but one can dream, right? The one forward that I really would have liked to have seen the Lightning somehow pick up, if money were no object, would have been Sean Moynihan from Montreal. You can never have too much help down the middle. Then again, the Lightning are pretty stacked down the middle. That's the one thing that we could probably say that, the Lightning don't lack in that strength down the middle. I mean, they're pretty solid in their center position. But, you never know. I mean, Noah Hannafin, another defenseman, 8 goals and 25 points this year, becomes an unrestricted free agent after this year. He's on the books for 4.95. You give Calgary a couple of draft picks, have them retain half his salary, and then you could start possibly talking contracts with him. I mean, because I would be shocked if, after this year, especially if they land a guy like Hannafin, I mean, do you really bring Perbix back? Probably not. Perbix is... I think a lot of Lightning fans are in agreement. I think, first of all, he's definitely still playing on that first line because Cooper loves him. Second of all, I think I'm on the side of a lot of Lightning fans when I say that, he's not a first line defenseman. He's not a second line defenseman. I mean, he's still playing off the laurels of the very short lived high level play that he had last year. But a lot of moves that need to be made for this Lightning team if Sergachev is out of the picture for the long term, and I think it should happen within the next week or so. I mean, we should start to hear grumbles around, I would probably say, the 21st, if not sooner, especially if it is 100% known that Sergachev is out for the long run. And I think that you get that guy in here, you get him acclimated. The sooner he gets in, the sooner he gets comfortable, the sooner he gets to know his teammates, and I think the sooner everybody feels better about the situation. So let me know in the comments below what you think about that. Yeah, the sooner the better, especially if it's a defenseman, which I think at this point we could all agree is an essential now in terms of trade deadline acquisitions for the Tampa Bay Lightning. So coming up tomorrow, we'll be talking about hopefully a Tampa Bay Lightning win, a comeback win in New York, as well as their upcoming matchup. They don't get a night off. They're tomorrow night in Long Island against the New York Islanders. So as always, I want to tell you, please go ahead, like and subscribe to the podcast. Give us a follow wherever podcasts are distributed in audio form. We're also available on YouTube. Go ahead, subscribe to the channel there. Drop a comment below. We're still trying to figure out where to do like this 24-hour forum. We have the conversation going in the comments on YouTube, and I absolutely love that. But I want to do more. I want the conversation going throughout the course of the day, every day. So we're thinking about Discord. We're thinking about Twitter. I'm probably leaning in the way of probably doing both, but just want to get kind of a mass opinion from all of you that listen and also or watch the show. So in the meantime, that's been it for this episode of Locked On Lightning, part of Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Adam Danker. I'll talk to you in the next one.